Donald Trump supporters, they had an event in Philadelphia that was supposedly focused on Black for Trump. Now, it was in a conservative area, largely white area. And it was led by Byron Downs of Florida and Wesley Hunt of Texas. It was called Congress, Cognac, and Cigars. Yeah. Okay. Now, check this out. Now, Michelle Tafoya, formerly, of course, sideline reporter for Monday Night Football, she was the one moderating this conversation and about Black's Republican Party. Don't ask me why. Now, there was no videotape of this, but the Philadelphia Inquirer reported that Donald made some comments about Black life during Jim Crow. This was the quote from the Philadelphia Inquirer, quoting Byron Downs. You see, during Jim Crow, the Black family was together. During Jim Crow, more Black people were not just conservative. Black people have always been conservative-minded, but more Black people voted conservatively. And then HEW, Lyndon Johnson, you go down that road, and now we are where we are. Well, that did not sit quite well with New York Congressman Hakeem Jeffries. He took to the floor of Congress to blast Donald.
Mr. Speaker, it has come to my attention that a so-called leader has made the factually inaccurate statement that Black folks were better off during Jim Crow. That's an outlandish, outrageous, and out-of-pocket observation. We were not better off when a young boy named Emmett Till could be brutally murdered without consequence because of Jim Crow. We were not better off when Black women could be sexually assaulted without consequence because of Jim Crow. We were not better off when people could be systematically lynched without consequence because of Jim Crow. We were not better off when children could be denied a high-quality education without consequence because of Jim Crow. We were not better off when people could be denied the right to vote without consequence because of Jim Crow. How dare you make such an ignorant observation? You better check yourself before you wreck yourself.
Well, Donald heard what Jeffries had to say, and this was his response.
America, Joe Biden's campaign is lying to you once again, and they're gaslighting. Now they're trying to say that I said Black people were doing better under Jim Crow. I never said that. They are lying. But why would you be surprised? Because they always lie. This is the same Joe Biden that said, if you don't vote for him, then you ain't Black. The man is a liar. Sorry, just call it what it is. What I said is that you had more Black families under Jim Crow, and it was the Democrat policies under HEW, under the welfare state, that did help to destroy the Black family. That's what I said. And I also said you're seeing a reinvigoration of Black families today in America, and that is a good thing. So don't listen to the lies from the Biden administration. I know what I said, and I'll say it straight to camera. They got to run to the Philadelphia Inquirer to move their lies. Joe Biden does not care about Black people. He never has. He cares about power, first, second, and third. They can go somewhere with all that. See ya.
Really? First of all, Congressman Donalds, if you have an issue, you take issue with the reporting of the Philadelphia Inquirer. And if you say that's not what you said, okay, produce us an audio recording. Produce us a video recording of exactly what you said during that, if you're disputing what the reporting is. See, I need everybody to understand this is the game. So instead of Donalds criticizing the Philadelphia Inquirer, and because y'all notice what he did not do. If he claims I didn't say that, you notice he did not demand a correction from the Philadelphia Inquirer. He's criticizing the Biden campaign, who is simply remarking on what was reported in the Philadelphia Inquirer. But anytime if y'all want to see the folks who play games, all you have to tell is he never demanded a correction from the Philadelphia Inquirer. That's when you know he actually said what he said, Robert, and that is grossly indefensible.
You know, this is part of the mythology that many in the Black conservative movement have taken up to believing this idea that Black folks were somehow better off prior to the civil rights movement, prior to integration, prior to any of the legal framework that we call the civil rights and the voting rights movement. There's this idea on the conservative side of the aisle that, well, if we could just go back to the good old days, before we had voting rights, before we had integration, we had stronger families. We had Stockholm syndrome. We had strong families because we didn't have no choice. We had no upward mobility. The reason that the marriage rates were so high because Black women couldn't have bank accounts, could not attend institutions of higher education, could not have a mortgage, could not buy a car on their own. The reason we lived together because you had redlining and you had blockbusting you were closing together Black communities to the point that they could not leave. That's the kind of fantasy world that many Black conservatives have decided to inhabit, where we were all just after slavery, sitting around whistling happy as who knows what. I wish they would just take that and rewind it all the way back to the radical Republican Congress from 1865 to 1876. If you're going to say things were so much better prior to the civil rights movement, then just say, I'm going to take up the Republican platform that existed under the radical Republicans, and we're going to push for reparations for Black folks in this country, because that was a Republican initiative. If you're going to say Black folks voted more conservatively prior to the 1940s and the 1950s, we'll take it all the way back. Take it all the way back and say we're going to enforce Sherman's Field Order number 15. We're going to enforce what Senator Stevens said on the floor of the House of Representatives, that we are going to take that promise of 40 acres and a mule, and we're going to distribute that to everyone in this country, everyone who is of African-American descent and of the descent of those who were enslaved in this nation. But to simply say, well, things were great prior to Black people having rights is exactly the type of African American that Donald Trump likes to point to and say, that's my African American. And as these people are jockeying for position to be the next vice president of the United States, as Congressman Donald and Tim Scott and others are, they have to remember that the statements they put and that they use on record right now are going to be used against other Black people in the future. We just saw the Fearless Fund. They're using the Civil Rights Act to deny them the ability to help Black businesses. These words and these actions have consequences, and maybe Byron Donald will be the next vice president of the United States of America, but he can't forget what he is doing to our communities on his way there.
See, this is the thing for me, Rebecca, that's always shameful and despicable when Byron Donalds, when that idiot Candace Owens, or any of these people say these things. They leave out the fact about the police dogs and the lynchings and the beatings. They leave out the fact that we were denied bank loans, denied housing loans. They leave out the fact that Black folks had to walk down the street, couldn't look white folks in the eye. They did not. So all those things. So if you want to talk about this small piece of what life was like for us during Jim Crow, I mean, you could literally make the argument that the Black nuclear family was a strong bond during slavery, because we were working together every single day, side by side, with mother and father and children, and we were together, and we lived in one room, and we ate together, and we prayed together. I mean, if we want to go there, I mean, that's literally what we could say. But then you leave out all the other stuff that was going on. Sorry, Congressman Donalds is full of shit.
So first of all, Byron, I need to know who your people are. Now, you were born and raised in Brooklyn. So I'm assuming that if your people came by way of the northern migration and the migration routes of how many Black folks ended up in New York, my guess is they probably came from South Carolina, North Carolina, maybe the Low Islands, going a little bit further south into Georgia, perhaps, maybe. I need to know who your grandma, your auntie, your uncles are, because I can guarantee you they would not agree with what you said. Second of all, what you just said on camera means that you are dumb, you're an idiot, or maybe Al B. Churd will say you are diseased in the mind. And this is why. Byron, you literally just said that Black families can attribute strong Black families to Jim Crow. That simply does not make sense. You are trying to correlate two separate things and try to have causation. And I'll explain what I mean by that. In the summer, ice cream sales go up. In the summer, crime goes up. Just because ice cream sales and crime both goes up in the summer doesn't mean that eating of ice cream leads to someone committing crime. That's not how it works. So just because you are making the argument that Black families, from your perspective, were stronger in the 50s and 60s doesn't mean that we can or should attribute it to Jim Crow. Simply, your mind is diseased to even jump and say that oppression is what made Black families stronger. That is not the case. I understand that you claim that you grew up in a Black broken home. You went to FAMU, then you transferred to Florida State. You married into a white conservative family, and now all of a sudden white ICE is better. But let's be clear, just because you said those things, which the Philadelphia Inquirer rightly attributed to you, you then go on camera saying, oh, I'm going to say it to their face. I'm going to say it to the camera. What you actually said on camera sounds even more stupid and idiotic than what the Philadelphia Inquirer said that you said. So if anything, you should thank them that they didn't expose your idiocy around this issue. And quite frankly, you are lost.
All right, so here's the deal. Before I go to Scott, so Byron Donald says he's blasted the Biden campaign, saying they didn't do it. Well, guess what? It was reported. There is video. And the Biden folks just posted it. Control room, if y'all have it, let's play it. If you don't have it yet, okay, if you don't have it yet, Scott, go with your... So Scott, go with your comment, and then we're gonna play the video. You actually hear Byron Donalds in his own words in a 26-second clip from that conversation.
I'll only add to my colleagues. I guess we was better together doing Jim Crow because we had stronger family, but we couldn't. You go to jail and you couldn't walk down the street. You couldn't vote. You couldn't get a job. Couldn't get educated. But we were together as a family. You know, every time these dumbass Republicans, one, they don't do their research. And they just ignorant. It just sometimes, and I know what you say, Roland. You say you got to call this out, Scott. But sometimes this stuff is so ignorant that it's just not even worth talking about. My colleague said it best. And by the way, if we were stronger as a family, our socioeconomic problems weren't there. But we weren't stronger as a family. We weren't stronger because of the socioeconomic and health disparities that still exist in America today. They were worse doing Jim Crow. So stop it. Just dumbass comments. That's all I got to say.
All right. So here's the actual video of Byron Donalds.
You see, during Jim Crow, the Black family was together.
That's right.
During Jim Crow, more Black people were not just conservative, because Black people always have been conservative-minded, but more Black people voted conservatively. And then HEW, Lyndon Johnson, and then you go down that road, and now we are where we are. What's happened in
He said, doesn't sound like he was misquoted.
Sounds to me like he was quoted correctly. So
Right.
Byron Donalds, you're lying.
When you get your Black history education from Ron DeSantis. This is why they want to get rid of CRT. This is why they want to get rid of DEI. They want to keep us all that damn dumb. They want us all to walk around here scratching when we ain't itching, laughing when we ain't tickled. That's the exact archetype for a Black man that they want in this country. One that's completely disconnected from his history, disconnected from Elaine, Arkansas, disconnected from Tulsa, Oklahoma, disconnected from the bloody summer of 1919. Someone who's completely disconnected from all aspects of American history besides what has been regurgitated and spewed back to him as patriotism. He wants us all to take that Ron DeSantis history course where, we were all just on the plantation having a good time. And then these northern aggressors came in to destroy the southern way of life. And we fought the good fight, but maybe we'll rise again. But then as soon as we ended that horrible Reconstruction, And our brothers and sisters in the Ku Klux Klan decided to come together to liberate us and to arm us and protect us from other groups. That is when the Black family was the strongest. That's the version of history that Byron Donald has been indoctrinated into and that he will like the rest of us to believe in. And if you believe that version of history, then no, we don't need voting rights. No, we don't need a Civil Rights Act. We don't need diversity, equity, and inclusion. We don't need affirmative action. Everything was great back when we had the proper American social structure of white supremacy on top, and then a couple of us get to prosper at the foot of white supremacy from the crumbs from the table, but the rest of us will be in subjugation. That is the Donald version of Black American history.
Y'all, again, I just love the people who say, I didn't say it. What'd you say, Scott?
What's worse about that video, real quick, Roland, is that there were other Black conservatives listening to him saying, right.
Well, actually, not really, because we don't really know who was in the room. First of all, here's what we do know.
Okay.
According to the Philadelphia Inquirer,
I thought it was a conservative event.
No. According to Philadelphia Inquirer, half of the people who were in the room weren't even from Philadelphia. They came in for it. It's no different than when Donald's hosted an event in South Carolina, and it was supposedly a Black Republican event, South Carolina, and there were like 5 in the room. So again, you hear this one thing, but it's another.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
You know what? You can always count on some folk who don't know nothing about politics to weigh in, and Dr. Phil is one of those folks. So he's touting this 70-minute interview that he did with Donald Trump. And frankly, he allowed Trump to sit here and lie repeatedly during the interview. But here, to me, is one of the questions that I just find to be stupid and idiotic from Dr. Phil. Listen to this.
Well, I wanted to, and I know that there was some news coming out of Georgia today, there was some news coming out of Florida today, that they're stepping back from this. And very good news. I called for the other day, and I don't know if you saw it, but on Merritt Street Media, where I now do my show, I called for President Biden to stop all of this now. And of course, a lot of people said, oh, he can't stop it, it's a state case. Well, okay, that's an explanation for stupid people, but for people that understand how this works behind the scenes and all, I say the same thing. They need to stop this. They need to stop pursuing you. Since you started your campaign in 2015 to run for office, there have been so many attempts to get you off the board even before you started your campaign. Then once you were in office, 2 impeachment opportunities, they changed the rules to try to make it high crimes and misdemeanors if there were business conflicts, and in this case, never ends. It seems to be never ending, and that is a distraction to you. And I really wonder how that affects you. What do you say to yourself about that? Because it seems to never be ending.
It's a never-ending thing. There's a term that I know you've heard many times. It's called Trump derangement syndrome. Nobody's ever said.
Well, yeah, Dr. Phil, maybe it's never-ending because he keep doing wrong shit. What you just heard right there, let me just be as succinct as I possibly can. You are full of shit, Dr. Phil. You are full of it. You are absolutely full of it. First of all, let's be real clear. They changed the rules when it came to high crimes and misdemeanors. Hey, Phil, have your ass ever actually read the Constitution? The Constitution does not actually define high crimes and misdemeanors, which means that the United States Senate and the United States House can define those very things on their own. Sounds to me like, Dr. Phil, you're an apologist for Donald Trump. Sounds to me like you were trying to kiss a lot of Trump ass at Mar-a-Lago. And then this, I think that's for stupid people to say Biden can't stop it. Let me be real clear, Dr. Phil, because clearly your doctorate ain't in political science. Clearly it's not in history. It's actually not in anything political. President Biden can't stop a damn thing. In fact, Dr. Phil, if Biden picked the phone up to tell Fani Willis not to prosecute Donald Trump, he has no jurisdiction. He has zero authority. He has no authority over Fani Willis in Fulton County. He has no authority over Alvin Bragg in Manhattan. He has the same amount of authority over a Democratic DA that he does of a Republican, which is none. And no president and no governor and no mayor and no county judge should be calling a DA telling them what not to prosecute. Now, Dr. Phil, you've operated as a witness in many trials, so you know a little bit about the law. Last I checked, Dr. Phil, it doesn't matter if you are a former president. It doesn't matter if you are a candidate for president. The sign above the Supreme Court says equal justice under law. And if somebody broke the law, and if a DA took it to a grand jury and got an indictment, then they have to go through the exact same procedure as any other regular Joe or Jamal in America. But I want to know how you feel. I want to know how you feel. All the attacking, they seems like they trying to keep you off the ballot. No, Phil, seems like his ass keeps breaking the law. All you did was sit there and just kiss Donald Trump's ass for 70 minutes. And y'all, then they posted some interview of some black woman in the crowd. She like, man, after that, I have a whole different view of Donald Trump after that interview. Well, yeah, if you sat there and saw Dr. Phil kissing his ass for 70 minutes. See, y'all need to understand what the likes of Dr. Phil are doing. First of all, he tried to say somewhere else, I'm not a political person. Really? After the comments that you made? Now, Dr. Phil, come on. Anybody with a quarter of a brain know you full of crap for what you just said. And so, yeah, you're going to get called out for it. And it was totally BS. I mean, they sitting here, they sitting here coming after you, and it's like they want to take you off the board. How about this, Dr. Phil? Why didn't you say, hey, Donald, if you don't want to be prosecuted, stop doing prosecutable shit? How about that? That could have been your position, Dr. Phil. But no, you want to use your platform to absolve Donald Trump of his alleged crimes. But here's the fact, Dr. Phil, as somebody who's been on the witness stand, participated in many trials, he was found liable for sexual assault in New York City. And he kept defaming E. Jean Carroll. I'm sorry, did you admonish him? Did you tell him Why won't you listen to the law? Please tell me, Dr. Phil, why didn't you tell Donald Trump to shut his mouth and stop insulting judges and violating gag orders? Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. That didn't go along with your long effort to kiss his ass for 70 minutes. You deserve to be criticized for that joke of an interview, Dr. Phil. Because essentially, what you did was a 70-minute campaign prop for Donald Trump. That's what we saw from you, Dr. Phil. Jonquil, your thoughts?
You know, with Donald Trump, although he was the president, these prosecutions, while everyone the biggest debate is about it being a party issue, right? The Democrats coming after the Republicans or Biden coming after Trump. But what this really shows and what's important here is that when it comes to Donald Trump is that no one is above the law. Even if you're the president of the United States of America, if you violate the law, if you break the law, then there are consequences to that. And you're going to be prosecuted as a result. And no one is going to drop the charges just because of who you are, what you're running for, or what your prior role was in the country. And frankly, you know, the president being the top person, the top man of the world, right? Because the United States is one of the most powerful countries in the world, right? We can't have tyranny running this country. And to Dr. Phil, that is begging President Biden to pardon him or to stop these prosecutions is really unfortunate that he's even making these kinds of pleas to the media, to online, to everyone else, because as you previously stated, the prosecutor has the discretion. Each state prosecutor, right, can make the decision on who they're going to prosecute in their jurisdiction. And so at the end of the day, he was just found guilty of 34 counts, okay, in that felony trial. And so at the end of the day, you've committed these felonies, a jury has spoken, and you deserve the consequences, as would any other ordinary citizen in this country.
Here's what sort of cracks me up here. I mean, I'm talking about if y'all want to hear something that's a joke. Wait, let me play this one right here, because I just found this one to be unbelievably laughable for somebody who supposedly is a doctor in human psychology. Supposedly. Listen.
I know you got a thick skin. You're not one of those people that's afflicted with the need to be loved by strangers. I get that.
I think that's true.
My question is not how do you do it. My question is why do you do it? Why do you, because let's face it, I mean, you're a billionaire, you got a great family, you're a very dedicated father. People may not see this in you a lot because you keep that kind of private. But my question to you is why do you subject yourself to this? How? I know you got a thick skin.
Matt, what? Everybody know this man ain't got no thick skin. This is one of the most thin-skinned individuals you've ever seen in your life. He attacks anybody and everybody. He is a narcissist. You don't have a need to be loved by everybody else. Yeah. What the hell is Phil talking about?
First, I want to know if Dr. Phil got a check from the campaign or from the Trump organization, because it seems pretty clear that he's pandering. And it's funny that we're having this conversation today. I was on a plane from Baltimore yesterday, and I'm reading this book, right? It's called Winning Arguments. And there's a section in here about Trump. And what the author talks about with Trump in particular is that Trump has been a force because he's had arguments and basically has controlled the narrative such that he's never talking about what anybody else is talking about. He's always talking about what he wants to talk about. And I think that's particularly dastardly in this situation is because Dr. Phil should have, I would think as a journalist, some ethic guiding him to at least be objective and ask questions that would make his viewers find out more about the subject and at least be fair in considering the subject. But here, to your point earlier, it's like a 70-minute campaign commercial. And the thing that's ridiculous about that is there has been coverage ad nauseum about how Mr. Trump is very petty, vindictive, about people who crossed him, come out and said that he would not really politically prosecute them, but basically he's going to go after people who are counter to him. That is consistent with being thin-skinned. So why he's throwing these alley-oops, trying to soft pedal his character and give him all these opportunities to come off like a family man and all these things that he publicly has spoken counter to in what he said, I don't know. And I don't understand why Dr. Phil would do this. But I also think, irrespective of him having a PhD, Dr. Phil is clearly in the entertainment business and not in the business of being a credible practitioner. So I think this is consistent with that. And I'm wondering if there was a big check for this entire session where Donald Trump got to come and extol his own virtues, especially with Dr. Phil helping him along.
All right. You want to hear more BS? Let's watch this asinine line of questioning.
Everybody calls it inflation, but affordability. When we talk about gasoline under your administration, average $2.57 a gallon. Under Biden, $3.61, 40% more. Under your administration, homes average $320,000. Under the Biden administration, 31% more, $420,000. Under your administration, interest rates 3.8 average. Under the Biden administration, 39% more at 5.3%. Okay, now let's look at the border. Under you, average 1.7 million border crossings. Their official number is 6.4. That's from Homeland Security. It's actually about 13 million because I know I've been to the border. I've talked to the border guards down there, Brandon Judd. I've talked to Jason Jones. I've talked to the people that actually know the numbers. They say it's between 10 and 13 million. So my point is when you look at the actual numbers, plus the things you just talked about, lower taxes, higher tax revenue, you look at that and you would say, my God, he should be running unopposed. I mean, why?
And these numbers, I appreciate it, and these numbers are really, I don't know who made them.
Very conservative.
As an example, I'd guess.
I can't listen to the bullshit anymore. First of all, this is the game Dr. Phil plays here. The average under you was this, under Biden is this. Okay, first, nice, convenient way to skip over 2020, Dr. Phil, that thing called COVID. Nice try. Second of all, when he talks about, average prices of a home, Dr. Phil, would you like to mention how America did not build enough housing stock in the previous decade? Do you not want to mention that private equity at the end of the decade, they will own 40% of all housing stock? That kind of plays a role in all of this. Because guess what? I can show you actually that prices were lower under Obama. Because you know what? Oh, that's right. Because we had an economic recession because the housing market crashed in 2008, 2009, and 2010. Oh, wow. Those things are called facts. And so what Dr. Phil tried to do right there, Michael, was give this bullshit false equivalency. I don't understand. If those things were so great, you should be running unopposed. We should just be sitting here hand delivering the cake to you every day because, my God, when you were there, the world was just flat out amazing. Why are we not just kissing your feet and washing your feet and praising you, dear leader? That's what Dr. Phil sounded like.
Yeah, he did. And, what's interesting is that Donald Trump inherited a relatively healthy economy.
Not relatively. No, he inherited an economy that was completely rebuilt after the destruction of Bush in 2007, 2008. And it was 3 years of hell under Obama in 09, 10, and 11 to get to a thriving economy in 12, 13, 14, 15, 16.
Right. Yeah. It was the unemployment rate was 4.7% when Donald Trump came into office. He inherited a healthy economy. And for evidence on this, the article from NBCnews.com, Trump says he built a great economy. Numbers tell a different story. So it's interesting when Dr. Phil wants to just compare the interest rates and compare the price of gas and things like this. He doesn't start with you inherited a healthy economy from Barack Obama and Joe Biden. And then also.
And he doesn't say, and you handed Biden an economy that sucked.
Exactly. Donald Trump is the only president that lost more jobs than he created. He lost 2.5 million jobs. No president has lost more jobs than were created since Herbert Hoover, okay, in 1932. The other thing is.
Wait. Before I just reminded me. Mm-hmm. How you gonna cite numbers and go, but the real number is 13 million because I went down there.
Yeah.
Oh, so what you do? You like, hold up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, so I'm sorry. So you gonna cite numbers, but then go on border crossing. Well, they say it's 6, but it's really 13 because I went down there and I talked to the people down there counting. So, so we should believe that number and the other number. Go ahead, man.
That looked more like a Fox News propaganda interview. But the other thing is that during COVID, and you had shutdowns in various states and nobody was driving, right? The price of gas plummeted because demand dropped. So it looks like he's averaging those.
Hold up. Mm-hmm. Demand didn't just drop.
Yeah.
What? Nobody driving.
Right. Exactly. We drove oil prices down.
I live 45 minutes from D.C.
Right.
I'm used to sitting in traffic. It was a damn ghost town driving in every day. What? I have never in my life, I will never forget 2020 and half of 2021. It was like, damn, where did everybody go? So, of course, dude, he just sat there again. But this is what happens when you go, well, the numbers are this and the numbers are this. And so this is apples. This is apples. No, it's not. It's a lot of stuff you leave out trying to sit here and craft the argument. But what got me, Michael, was you should be running unopposed.
Yeah, well, he totally left out that whole insurrection thing when Donald Trump tried to overthrow.
Oh, my bad. Yeah,
that's just domestic terrorists to attack the U.S. Capitol, and they assaulted over 140 police officers. He just conveniently left that whole thing out. But the other thing is, you talked about it here on the show, Roland. Under President Joe Biden, you have a record amount of oil production that the U.S. is doing at the same time. OK, The Economist has an article, Joe Biden, master oil trader, from May 16, 2024, that goes into this and deals with why, even though the price of oil, I think the price of gas is a little higher, I think, than this time last year, but it's still relatively low. OK, so all things considered. So this was you would have thought that this appeared on Fox News or Newsmax.
Or Fox Nation.
Fox Nation, the amount of lies that were told. And no fact checking.
This absolutely, as Matt said, Matt says a campaign video, you called it propaganda. That's all this is. Dr. Phil has absolutely no credibility with me talking politics after this joke of an interview with Donald Trump. I mean, it's abundantly clear.
Absolutely.
It's abundantly clear. And so his line of questioning, all the stuff he laid out, and I'm just sitting here going, And we supposed to believe your ass? And your Merritt Street media? Nah, we ain't believing that trash. It was an absolute joke. And hold on, let me see if I can find that damn clip of the black woman they had in the audience. You know, I just had a whole different view of Donald Trump after watching that interview. Yeah, because all you watched was an ass-kissing interview. Hold on, here's this here. Hold on, let me set this up. I mean, I don't know who the hell this sister is, but if she was in my family, man, we'd be cussing her out at Sunday dinner. Listen to this nonsense. Come on, pull the audio up.
So watching your interview today, I think it actually gave me an interpretation that I've never had of him before. And us not seeing him more, it actually kind of hurts people on judging him. I guess if that's what the media wants to do, then they're doing a very good job at it.
Yeah, you bet. All right.
What? Us not seeing him more. And Dr. Phil, Dr. Phil, you bet. The man lies every damn day. Every damn day. And here's the other deal that, and I would love for Dr. Phil to want to address this question. What was up with all the jump cuts in the interview? What was up with all, because matter of fact, some people have posted, let me play this clip right here. Let me find it here. So like when we do interviews, I don't cut stuff out. You talk beginning to end. But hold up, here we go.
You'd be the first one.
No, okay, now y'all just watch this right here. What's up with the splicing? Okay, watch.
You'd be the first one to do it. I know you. You'd say, what? Let's get rid of these. You know the money they save and the danger they save?
And look at this map that...
You'd be the first one to do it. I know you. You'd say, what? Let's get rid of these. You know the money they save and the danger?
Folks are talking about in terms of how it was edited, stuff along those lines. Again, just understand, y'all, this is what you call absolute propaganda. And then Dr. Phil wants to say, oh, no, I'm not picking sides. I'm not he's giving all these, oh no, I don't do those things. No, I'm not even involved in politics. I just want the world to come together. In fact, y'all, this is literally what he said 3 days before he decided to go talk to Dear Leader. Listen to this.
I wanted to share my final thought about this. This weaponization of our great institutions, the FBI, Justice Department, and individual states' similar institutions, will lead to one of two outcomes.
Okay, let's stop right here. So first of all, you already are using right-wing talking points by saying it's the weaponization of the Justice Department. I'm sorry, do we want to remind Dr. Phil who tried to actually fire a number of officials? That was Trump. Who ordered... And he and several of his top lieutenants in the DOJ said, we will resign if you make this move. That was Donald Trump. This is the man. Really, Dr. Phil? Oh, the weaponization against him? Okay, a little more BS, y'all.
From the other side, tit for tat. That may seem deserved, but it is not the right way forward for America. The other is what I call on you to demand from your politicians today, an end to this craziness in order to save the soul and sanity of our country. The Pope has actually given us the right approach in his new book when he says, we are all brothers and sisters, and there must be no resentment among us. For any war to truly end, forgiveness is necessary. That is true of any war, including our current cultural war. We need our Justice Department to return to the business of meting out justice and not running the political agendas of those currently in power, blindly.
So the DOJ, so help me out, Dr. Phil. If the current Department of Justice was doing Biden's bidding, why is his son on trial?
Right.
I mean, if they would do my bidding, I'd be like, y'all ain't prosecuting my son. Oh, remember when Biden said, remember when Phil said that Joe Biden could pick the phone up and end these trials? How would Dr. Phil like it if Biden said, y'all ain't prosecuting my son in this? Oh, you would have a problem with that, huh? Huh.
Right.
Ain't that interesting? Biden has come out and said he will not pardon his son if convicted. Donald Trump said he will pardon every single person involved in January 6th.
Mm-hmm.
But you, Dr. Phil, say we need to get back to doing the job. Okay, just a little more of the BS from Dr. Phil.
Wait, can I ask a question first?
Convictions, warranted or otherwise, and attacking political opponents. That requires a very few important things from each of you, from all of us. Finding your voice, forgiveness, and focus on the way forward.
Okay, he just said forgiveness and focus on the way forward. Yeah, 3 days after this, in his interview, Donald Trump promised retribution against his enemies. I didn't recall Dr. Phil quoting the Pope at that time. I didn't recall Dr. Phil telling him, you know what, that's not right, that's not fair, that's not just. You should be extending grace and mercy. Oh, I'm sorry, we can't use grace and mercy against somebody who holds the Bible upside down. Back to Dr. Phil.
Forgive them, for they know not what they do. Forgiveness, and at the same time requiring better. We are not some banana republic, for God's sakes. What are we going to do next? Have a Putin poisoning posse?
Okay, all right. So first of all, let me help Dr. Phil out with something. When you say the phrase banana republic, do you know where that came from? That phrase came from the United States helping overthrow countries largely in Latin America because of the folks who own banana plantations. Yeah, that's how we also took over Hawaii and it became a state. Just read Stephen Kinzer's book, Overthrow. Now, let me help you out, Dr. Phil. In a banana republic, there ain't no trial. They go from pick you up to execution. So the reality is, Donald Trump had due process. It actually happened. So when y'all throw these phrases out, we're gonna be a banana republic, that's actually not what a banana republic is when you actually get to present a defense. So you might want to actually study the phrase banana republic, Dr. Phil, before you just start talking like Sean Hannity. I got to put a little bit more of the stupidity.
And start finding political opponents foaming at the mouth at home, not so mysteriously dying in their lazy boy recliners? We're better than that. We must be better than that. I don't like what I see happening in our country. This kind of thing is exactly why I launched Merit Street Media and wrote We've Got Issues. I don't like seeing the weaponization of our justice system, agencies, and powerful government actions that, frankly, just make my skin crawl for all of us and for my grandchildren. And let's be honest, this is so not just about Trump. If you let your hatred for Donald Trump compromise your ability to find true north on your moral compass, shame on you. If you let your disgust for Biden make you blind to the inevitable consequences of pursuing revenge, then God help the children who will inherit the dystopian nightmare we create.
Yet 3 days later, you interview Trump and he talks about retribution and you say and do nothing. Dr. Phil, you are a joke. And all of that crap that you said in this 4-minute and 16-second commentary, and I only played half of it, everything that you said can be thrown right out that damn window on Black Lives Matter Plaza here in Washington, D.C., because when you actually talked to Trump 3 days later, it was a 180 degree from everything that you said here. So the fact of the matter is, you talked about having a moral compass in this. You clearly forgot your moral compass when you went to Mar-a-Lago. Matt, I think you wanted to make a comment.
Yeah, what I was going to say is that Bob Menendez and his wife are being prosecuted right now by Biden's Justice Department, aren't they? And he's a Democrat. Yes. Right. And what we see that the goalpost always moves. We know, especially with Trump, it's about, his talking points and advancing his message. But all I was going to add to it is, one, there's great irony with it being called Merit Street and then obviously having a non-meritorious a conversation with Mr. Trump. But the bigger part of that is the thing I thought was really insidious about this is the way Donald Trump continues to other black people, referring to the blacks should give him 100% of his vote. And what's interesting about that is that there's just so many people who allow his sound bites to ring rather than the totality of what he said, including Dr. Phil, to your point, about 3 days later, he says something directly in contravention with that, and you don't see any retraction or any kumbaya from Dr. Phil then. And that's what I think is driving this. Sound bites and people being placated with sound bites and then forgetting about what was said until the next time a spicy sound bite comes out.
Folks, if y'all want, y'all can watch that 71-minute interview with Dr. Phil. It's trash. And he's shown exactly who he is with this trash that he just presented. And you simply have no credibility on any of this, Dr. Phil. You clearly are a Trump apologist. That's what you sounded like in the interview. It's abundantly clear. When you try to kiss as much butt as you can, and I'm sure Eric Trump and Donald Trump Jr. were going, damn, he did a better job of kissing our dad's ass than we do.
When COVID happened, poor people were dying at a rate already of 800 people a day. Before COVID, if you went to a funeral every single day, it would take you 600 years to attend all the funerals of the people who will die from the ravages of policy violence, poverty, and low wages in America in just 1 year. It would take you 2 years and 19 days to go to all of the funerals of the people that will die today, and oftentimes silence. Nobody talks about this political genocide, but we are determined today to remember their death and be a resurrection of voting power and voice power like never before.
Economic justice and saving this democracy are deeply connected. We, as a nation, must listen to the demands of the poor, who are pushing and will continue to push political candidates and elected leaders to lift from the bottom so that everybody can rise.
We are the poor, the marginalized, and the underpaid. And we are taking one step forward to say that everybody has a right to live.
Poverty is not the fault of those who are impoverished. It is caused by those who make the policy.
There are over 135 million poor and low-wage, low-income people in this nation.
The biggest block of potential voters by far is low-income, low-wage voters.
I can't afford medicine. Sometimes I have to skip because of the cost.
The farm worker community is tired of the violence imposed upon us by greed, exclusion, and denial of basic human rights.
Those folk that represented by that casket, poor and low-wage workers who are the most moral people in this country because they go to work every day believing, even though going to work is hazardous to their health.
I'm tired of working 70 to 80 hours a week and still not have money for the necessity of bills. I'm tired of getting sick and not being able to go see the doctor. Having to make a choice to pay between rent or the light bill or food or clothes.
You cannot claim to care about families and a culture of life and then do everything in your power to rob people of equal access to resources and to force them to live in poverty.
Leadership of both parties had waged war on poor people and low-wage workers.
And this government has treated people experiencing poverty, including their military families, with disdainful, deliberate, malicious neglect.
So the truth is that my son died from poverty.
We refuse to accept poverty as the fourth leading cause of death.
The fourth leading cause of death in this, the richest country in the world.
We march today for our children and the generations to come.
And we need to do it with the loudest voices possible, the biggest actions possible.
We will voice our demands and register our vote.
When we stand up and when we stand together, things change.
There is the electorate that is, and then there is the electorate that should be.
34 million eligible poor and low-income voters did not vote in 2016. If just 20% of those voters in swing states were mobilized around an agenda, they could change the political outcome of every election. So we're launching the most massive voter mobilization and turnout campaign in history of poor and low-wage voters, allies, and religious leaders.
People are dying, but we know it doesn't have to be this way. And so we are calling on everyone to join us in this Poor People's Campaign, a national call for more revival.
We are here, we will be seen, we will be heard, and our power will be felt. We don't need to be an insurrection. We are a resurrection that will be felt across this country. Are you ready? Ready, ready, ready. We are a resurrection, and we are ready. And we won't be silent anymore.
Okay, y'all. The Indiana Fever and the Chicago Sky played on Saturday. Of course, Angel Reese plays for the Sky. Caitlin Clark plays for the Indiana Fever. And, oh, Lord, have all these people, these commentators, and these folks who have no clue about the WNBA have been losing their minds because Kennedy Carter, a Texas A&M alum, committed a hard foul against, oh, my goodness, Caitlin Clark. Oh, the last thing we can do is have hard fouls in the WNBA. So here's what actually happened. Watch this.
Doubled off to Carter. Her jumper is good. Kennedy Carter now with 12 points off the bench. And Clark.
All right, so Kennedy Carter gives Caitlin Clark a love tap. It's a shove. And oh my goodness, they've been losing their minds. Now, there's a thing called context. And again, folks are like, this is ridiculous. This makes no sense. It's just wrong. This can't be allowed. Do any of y'all watch basketball? WNBA or the NBA? Folk get pushed, shoved. Are we serious? Oh, just in case y'all didn't quite understand the context, let me roll back what happened prior to this play. Watch this.
1 for 2 at the line. Carter had it deflected by Clark, who comes up with a steal. Here's Clark. Clark using the Boston screen. Carter got over it. Bump from behind, and Indiana able to retain possession. Boston, mid-range fake, the pull-up, short, the follow, no. Another chance, won't go for Boston. Loose ball, this time it's good. Aaliyah Boston flips it in.
So maybe y'all didn't quite see it. So I'm just going to slide this back a little bit. So at the top of the screen, I want y'all to watch, after the bucket is made, watch Caitlin Clark turn back and talk some trash to Kennedy Carter. It's at the top of the video. Watch this.
Boston. Loose ball. This time it's good. Aaliyah Boston flips it in after the
Now, Caitlin Clark talks trash on the basketball court all the time, just like Larry Bird did. So guess what? When you talk trash to somebody, all right, they're going to remind your ass what's going on. So why are these people literally losing their minds and how, oh my God, what's going on? Do y'all want to see some stupidity? How about the dumbasses with the Chicago Tribune editorial board? Mind you, she doesn't play for the Chicago Sky. This is the Chicago Tribune editorial board. At least go to my iPad. From the editorial board. The foul committed by Chicago Sky guard Kennedy Carter on Caitlin Clark was egregious. Outside of a sporting contest, it would have been seen as an assault. I don't don't know if these are all new people with the Chicago Tribune, but clearly you didn't have anybody with the Tribune who was on the editorial board when the Bulls would play the Pistons and the Pistons would beat the hell out of Michael Jordan, and they called it the Jordan rules, and their deal is when he brought his ass down the lane, you put a hurting on Michael Jordan. Yeah. Y'all, Magic Johnson, they were whooping his ass when he came into the NBA. Oh, you gonna come in here hot dogging it? His own teammates were giving him hell. Larry Bird had a crazy fight with Dr. J. I mean, we can go on and on and on. I remember Kareem Abdul-Jabbar mollywopped several players. So I'm trying to understand here why we ain't even gonna talk about the brawl at the Palace with the Pistons and Indiana Pacers. Can we please stop this snowflake crap with Caitlin Clark? Okay? Come on. Guess what? One of the other centers threw Angel Reese down on the floor, and that was called, "Hey, boo, welcome to the WNBA." This is called sports. And so then you got all these folks, then you got crazy ass people saying stuff like Pat McAfee on ESPN, his silly ass, and he's now since apologized for this utterly ridiculous comment. But listen to Pat McAfee explain what's going on here, and he sounds like an idiot.
Is she what? I don't know. I just, with my eyes, I couldn't see if she's Caucasian or not. So I think what we're trying to say is what the WNBA currently has is what we like to describe as a cash cow. There is a superstar. And we're not saying that the players on the court need to act any differently. That's the athletes are going to do what athletes are going to do in any sport. And I think we're all learning that WNBA, that's old school football, baby. That is old school football. But I would like the media people that continue to say, this rookie class, this rookie class, this rookie class. Nah, just call it for what it is. There's one white bitch for the Indiana team who is a superstar. And is it because she stayed in Iowa, put an entire state on her back, took a program from nothing to a multiple-year success story? Is it because she would go on to break the entire...
That's a whole bunch of BS. First of all, let's just unpack some things here. First, Caitlin Clark is not a WNBA superstar. She was a superstar in college. Now, has she brought lots of attention? Absolutely. Absolutely. I talked about this beforehand, that a lot of the attention, the Nike deal, all of these different things, I mean, we could go on and on and on, and how everybody's benefiting. But they're also benefiting because the previous generation, what they built. They also are benefiting because we saw female stars in college. One of them, Angel Reese. In fact, Angela Reese, and she talked about this whole thing as well, making it clear that folk also watching me. See, this is where Pat McAfee was wrong, because what he was saying there is that, oh, this rookie class is only about Caitlin Clark. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's really, I'm telling you, Angela Reese and Caitlin Clark. This is Michael Jordan, Larry Bird. Excuse me, this is Magic Johnson, Larry Bird. It's what it is. And I accept the reality of black and white. I do. Because that's America. The biggest money fight was what? In boxing? George Clooney and Larry Holmes. Yeah, that's black and white. This is America. But I'm tired of these people acting like she can't be filed. Here's the whole deal. If you're Caitlin Clark and you talk trash, your ass gonna get smacked. And Kennedy Carter said, listen, little girl, you new to this, I'm true to this. Kennedy Clark was a baller at Texas A&M.
She was an All-American. She was balling in the WNBA, had some issues in Atlanta and Los Angeles. She scored 19 points for that game, outscoring Caitlin Clark. But this is real simple. When you play grown-ass women are going to talk to you like you're a rookie. So I need all of these men and all of these women and all of these people who ain't never followed the WNBA. Oh, by the way, I'm from Houston. First 3-time champion of the Houston Comets. I'm quite familiar with the WNBA, so I ain't new to this. I'm true to this. But when you have these utterly ridiculous people like Megan Kelly saying stupid stuff, like look at this idiot. Instead of taking cheap shots at Caitlin Clark and miring themselves in blinding envy of her, they should try to be more like her. They'd play better and their lives would improve. Hey, dumbass Megan Kelly. Caitlin Clark has already set the rookie record for most turnovers as a rookie. There are other players playing way better than her. Oh, by the way, Megan, because you don't know shit about WNBA, Caitlin Clark's Indiana Fever, they're 2-8. So, oh, by the way, Sunday's game, she scored, I think, was it 3 points or 5 points? She didn't even hit double digits. So there's a notion that, oh my God, be like her. Hey, it's called toughen the hell up. You're now in pro ball. And I don't understand for the life of me, Renita, why these people are such snowflakes as if they've never watched sports before. This is what happens when you decide to come in as the hot rookie. Ask Kobe what happened. They were like, yo, we're going to put you on your ass. In fact, I remember that video of the players like, I ain't passing his ass the ball at the All-Star game. So this ain't new in sports. And so guess what? Caitlin Clark, she going to have to deal with, like everybody else, take your ass to the weight room, bulk up, because they going to hit you.
Yeah, this whole thing is so crazy. And what the Chicago Tribune said is absolutely outrageous, to say that this would be considered assault on anywhere else if it weren't on a basketball court. Give me a break. You would have to go far and wide to find a solicitor that would actually try to give somebody an assault charge over essentially a push. That is ridiculous. That's not worth the paperwork or the charges. So they definitely overblew it. And I think that they overblew it because it looks like there's a racial difference between Caitlin and Kennedy. The second thing is, when I saw in print the interview that they did with Caitlin after, and she herself even said, this is what happens in basketball. There's nothing to do. You know, the shove happened. I had to pick myself up and reset my attitude, and you keep moving. It's just a part of basketball. So really, this is just a lot of people blowing it up. And I think that they're doing that because she is a white woman. And I think that the root of all of this is really going back to sort of try to protecting that white femininity, because we've never seen it.
Here's a game. Renita, here's the game 2 weeks earlier. Y'all, here's the game 2 weeks earlier. Watch these two centers go at it. Hard foul. Uh-oh, about to come to blows. What you gonna do? What you gonna do? Yo, this is sports. This is sports. And the reality is this here. If the video we showed, Caitlin Clark was talking trash to Kennedy Carter after the basket. And on Congo, she was like, oh, okay, I got something for your ass. We go down the court.
Yep. And Caitlin Clark also elbowed her as well during those plays as well, which
I saw it. Tussle for the ball. You go high. But it wasn't like, I mean, I've seen some elbows. So, I mean, it wasn't that big deal. But, I mean, but it's all a part of the game, and it's going to get physical.
No, absolutely. And I think people also forgot that other malice at the Palace when I think it was the Sparks versus the Shock in 2008, a WNBA game that, turned into a brawl of some sort. This is part of the game, and very frustrating. I'm frustrated with the cloak that has been wrapped around Caitlin Clark, and it's no fault of her own. She gets out there, she plays hard. She doesn't play into any of the race stuff. She doesn't play into any of the other things. She gets on the court, talks her trash, does her thing just like anybody else out there. there. But this idea of how she has to be protected because she's saving the league, and people talking about, oh, now charter flights are happening because of what she said. People have been speaking about charter flights for years, and now it's happening. And so she has accelerated things that have already been happening. And so I think that that's a great thing. But what is the league going to start giving automatic flagrant fouls now if she gets touched in a particular way? This is ultimately going to hurt her success as the league goes forward. And I want to also shout out Monica McNutt on ESPN's First Take, as well as Jamel Hill, who've been out there speaking about a lot of the sexism that people have been putting out there just in their comments about the WNBA in general. But getting back to the issue of Caitlin Clark, they can't have this mentality of we're going to protect this woman at all costs because she is the savior of the league. She will save the league, quote unquote. She gets out there, competes, and fights hard. And this Pat McAfee talking about she's the only one with that sexist statement that he made and offensive statement. There are so many, Cardoso, Reese, and so on and so forth. And so I'm glad that I'm able to learn more about the league, watch the league, and I am going to listen to the people, mainly the women commentators who know about the league and follow it, and they need to be uplifted as well. But all of this other nonsense, I'm seeing like, why is Morning Joe covering this? Did they talk about what Alyssa Thomas did to Angel Reese? This is ridiculous.
I mean, right. I mean, it's I mean, look, you referenced the fight Detroit shot. Go to my iPad. I mean, this is the video right here. They went at it. I mean, the bottom line is, to me, that looked much bigger than the Caitlin Clark stuff, Julian. These people, this just goes to show you that, one, you got folks who never watched the WNBA. They're snowflakes, and they want her to be treated with kid gloves. It's a gross overreaction, and it's called basketball. Suck it up and deal with it.
Exactly. I mean, one of the things you have to say is, we've seen elbows, we've seen pushing, we've seen shoving. It happens with the men and with the women. That's how it goes down. It's not, I mean, that's just how it is. But the reaction is because of white women's frailty. All these people are railing around, I mean, virtually clutching their pearls because poor little Caitlin Clark got knocked down. Hell, if you want to play with the big girls, you got to be a big girl. And she wasn't complaining. I'll say that. She's been very aware of the racial differences, even with Angel. She wasn't complaining. But all these protectors, I call them quasi-clan members. You know, back in the day, if a white woman said she was looked at ways, suddenly there was a lynching. There's one story from back in the day. I know you stick me in my stories, Roland, but I tell them anyway, where a brother was walking down the street and a white woman was bathing in the window. Now, why was the bathing in the window? So then she said the man was eyeballing her. She bathed in the window. They lynched her. So this is basically fast forward. You got these. You can't push Caitlin Clark. Well, if Caitlin Clark wants to play WNBA, somebody gonna push her. They're gonna push her more than once. She needs to up her game. She was a great college superstar, and she did bring a lot of attention to the league. I give her props for that. But guess what? She has not at all met her accolades in terms of the quality of her play. And the fact that she got her behind knocked down, hey, I ain't mad at nobody.
And listen, that's going to happen. This right here is video of another WNBA game. The players were going at it, jawing at each other. The refs called technical fouls on them. It happens. I mean, so bottom line is, this is what is called sports. I mean, I don't understand why people are just losing their damn minds over this. Bottom line is here. Hey, and let me be real clear. Okay, for all the folks who are talking about, well, you know, how should you respond? Listen, I remember when it was Larry Bird and Bill Laimbeer. And listen, Larry Bird was not taking nothing from the Detroit Pistons and Bill Laimbeer. And Bird fought many folk. And let me be real clear. Bird was a white boy from Indiana who could ball, who could straight up ball. But
But listen, when he was fighting, he went after Dennis Rodman. Go to the video. He was fighting Dennis Rodman, Bill Laimbeer. He ain't care. He ain't care. Watch, for all y'all people who tripping on Catlin, hello, watch this right here.
I don't remember Larry Bird getting as angry as I saw him there.
Bird would stand for getting pulled down on a layup, but not on a play like that with the clock running down. And he really got taken down very hard. And, of course, Bird is very upset at Laimbeer and has been for a long time.
So all I'm saying, y'all sitting here tripping. Them were the days in the NBA when they was sitting here just swinging. That little bump on Caitlin Clark, man, that was a love tap from the Detroit Pistons. That was a love tap. All right, y'all.
When COVID happened, poor people were dying at a rate already of 800 people a day. Before COVID, if you went to a funeral every single day, it would take you 600 years to attend all the funerals of the people who will die from the ravages of policy violence, poverty, and low wages in America in just 1 year. It would take you 2 years and 19 days to go to all of the funerals of the people that will die today, and oftentimes silence. Nobody talks about this political genocide, but we are determined today to remember their death and be a resurrection of voting power and voice power like never before.
Economic justice and saving this democracy are deeply connected. We, as a nation, must listen to the demands of the poor, who are pushing and will continue to push political candidates and elected leaders to lift from the bottom so that everybody can rise.
We are the poor, the marginalized, and the underpaid. And we are taking one step forward to say that everybody has a right to live.
Poverty is not the fault of those who are impoverished. It is caused by those who make the policy.
There are over 135 million poor and low-wage, low-income people in this nation.
The biggest block of potential voters by far is low-income, low-wage voters.
I can't afford medicine. Sometimes I have to skip because of the cost.
The farm worker community is tired of the violence imposed upon us by greed, exclusion, and denial of basic human rights.
Those folk that represented by that casket, poor and low-wage workers who are the most moral people in this country because they go to work every day believing, even though going to work is hazardous to their health.
I'm tired of working 70 to 80 hours a week and still not have money for the necessity of bills. I'm tired of getting sick and not being able to go see the doctor. Having to make a choice to pay between rent or the light bill or food or clothes.
You cannot claim to care about families and a culture of life and then do everything in your power to rob people of equal access to resources and to force them to live in poverty.
Leadership of both parties have waged war on poor people and low-wage workers.
And this government has treated people experiencing poverty, including their military families, with disdainful, deliberate, malicious neglect.
So the truth is that my son died from poverty.
We refuse to accept poverty as the fourth leading cause of death.
The fourth leading cause of death in this, the richest country in the world.
We march today for our children and the generations to come.
And we need to do it with the loudest voices possible, the biggest actions possible.
We will voice our demands and register our vote.
When we stand up and when we stand together, things change.
There is the electorate that is, and then there is the electorate that should be.
34 million eligible poor and low-income voters did not vote in 2016. If just 20% of those voters in swing states were mobilized around an agenda, they could change the political outcome of every election. So we're launching the most massive voter mobilization and turnout campaign in history of poor and low-wage voters, allies, and religious leaders.
People are dying, but we know it doesn't have to be this way. And so we are calling on everyone to join us in this Poor People's Campaign, a national call for more revival.
We are here, we will be seen, we will be heard, and our power will be felt. We don't need to be an insurrection. We are a resurrection that will be felt across this country. Are you ready? 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 We are a resurrection, and we are ready. And we won't be silent anymore.
Sports commentator Colin Cowherd, man, did he tear into Trump. And look, here's a guy who was a conservative Republican, and he had a whole lot to say about the orange one. Check this out.
You know, I've said this about Trump before. He's trying to sell me an America that doesn't exist. Let's say I got busted for some really bad crime in court, a drug crime, and my wife did too, in a separate case. And then so did one of my kids, my manager, my agent, and my attorney. It would be reasonable to conclude that I'm shady and involved in a business that's not terribly legal. Well, Donald Trump is now a felon. His campaign chairman was a felon. So is his deputy campaign manager, his personal lawyer, his chief strategist, his national security advisor, his trade advisor, his foreign policy advisor, his campaign fixer, and his company CFO. They're all felons, judged by the company you keep. It's a cabal of convicts. It's not that I'm not willing to vote for conservatives. I said I would have voted for Mitt Romney. Seemed like a decent family man. I liked the second Bush, George Bush Sr.'s son. I liked him. I thought he was a decent American, a decent human. I liked his wife, Laura Bush. I thought they were decent people. If everybody in your social circle is a felon, I don't think it's rigged. I don't think the world's against you. And to get people to agree on anything, 34 counts, 0 for 34. I mean, that's a batting slump even the New York Mets could be impressed with. 0 for 34. When you're constantly trying to sell me on an America that I don't see, I'm not saying inflation's not an issue, but I get on airplanes all the time, and it's not a bunch of rich people. I get on planes, there's people in normal clothes, they don't look rich to me, and the planes are all full, and the hotels are all full, and the freeways are all full. That means people are going to work. You're trying to sell me on this story and this narrative that's just not true. Trump's entire game plan is the country is in a free fall. But when everybody in your team, everybody in your group, your cabal is a felon, maybe the world's not against you. Stop trying to sell me on everything's rigged. The country's falling into the sea. The economy's terrible. The economy's okay. It's not like on fire, but the America that I live in is imperfect, but compared to the rest of the world, I think we're doing okay.
I'm a Congo, a cabal of convicts. He nailed it.
Yeah, I was going to bring that one up too. And this is what is needed, to be quite honest, because where people here who are watching are pretty much baked in. People who may watch MSNBC might be baked in terms of who, how they view Trump. But it's going to be guys like this, who are conservative leaning, but also have a reach in the sports world that are going to also help turn the tide, and reach out to some of those independent voters. This is still Biden's election to lose. And, Trump keeps losing more and more support. But if people like him, I love what George Conway did on CNN over the weekend when he called out, one of the commentators and said, I can't believe CNN's paying you, the way that you're just lying about, these types of things. This is what it's going to take. Republicans against Trump. Keep coming hard. And again, it's not about, whether we all agree 100%, but it's like, do we want to be able to have more elections after November 5th? And he called it plain and clear. People are working. People are traveling. This is the basic idea of America that Trump's people are trying to sell his followers against. And the fact that Cowherd is speaking up against this, there needs to be more like him following his lead. And this is going to be part of how we deliver that final verdict on November 5th.
Leon?
You know, it's interesting to hear this guy is really on point, and the cabal of what is it? I wrote it down because I'm a user. The cabal of conservatives is a wonderful alliteration, but it's more than that. Here's what we know: looking at attack on Larry Hogan. Now, I'm not a Larry Hogan fan whatsoever. He's always kind of played it narrow. The Republican candidate for the United States Senate. He's always kind of tried to be Mr. Bipartisan. And so he said something quite mild, I think, that people should respect the jury. And what he gets back from the RNC is that's the campaign. Basically, they are a cabal, and they're demanding absolute loyalty, absolute, unfettered, blind loyalty to the orange man who doesn't deserve it. And what we see, I mean, I didn't think they were going to get 34 out of 34. I figured they were going to fudge it and maybe they get like 20 out of 34 just because. I just didn't figure the whole jury. But if you got one, you got all of it because there was a pattern in practice. And so now you basically have these folks who want to make excuses. What's his name? The orange man said, you know, it basically his constituents aren't going to be happy. Well, they never been happy. They like him. What about that would make you happy? And so basically, Roland, what we have here is a situation where loyalty is going to lead us over the cliff. That's really what's going on. But again, always, we all know it's November 5th. And what we have to do if we oppose that man is to organize in such a way. It's not a narrow victory. It's not 1 point or 2 point. It's a resounding victory so that there is no question that he lost to the loss, to the loss, to the loss. That's the work for those people like Latasha and Melanie, the sisters who are out there doing the work, the brothers out there doing the work. That's the work we have to do. We have to make sure it's a resounding defeat for the orange man.
Rita?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see a lot of these folks that are talking right now, what they actually will do in November, because as we well know, conservatives have a history, you know, even going back to before 2016, but let's just say 2016 with Trump, of saying bad things about him and saying that, you know, they don't like what he's saying or doing, and then they turn right around and vote for him. So these comments are entertaining. It's interesting what Colin said, but I do think that for anybody who does not want to see Trump elected, please don't rest on your laurels with these comments, because a lot of these people will turn around and just vote for Trump. I do think one thing that he said is actually good for resetting the goalpost, because so many have said, and Trump keeps saying this too, that the official verdict on the New York charges the felonies that he was just convicted of, the official ruling will be in November. And that's not how it works. We have a criminal justice system. A decision was made. The decision stands until another decision is made in court. And so for everybody else, particularly Black Americans in this country who have been convicted in a court of law, it doesn't matter how many people think you are innocent. You're convicted until there is another decision. So I do think we need to get back to that. He has been convicted of these felonies. It doesn't matter if everybody in the world disagrees with the decision of what happened, the jury's decision. The decision is a decision.
When COVID happened, poor people were dying at a rate already of 800 people a day. Before COVID, if you went to a funeral every single day, it would take you 600 years to attend all the funerals of the people who will die from the ravages of policy violence, poverty, and low wages in America in just 1 year. It would take you 2 years and 19 days to go to all of the funerals of the people that will die today, and oftentimes silence. Nobody talks about this political genocide, but we are determined today to remember their death and be a resurrection of voting power and voice power like never before.
Economic justice and saving this democracy are deeply connected. We, as a nation, must listen to the demands of the poor, who are pushing and will continue to push political candidates and elected leaders to lift from the bottom so that everybody can rise.
We are the poor, the marginalized, and the underpaid. And we are taking one step forward to say that everybody has a right to live.
Poverty is not the fault of those who are impoverished. It is caused by those who make the policy.
There are over 135 million poor and low-wage, low-income people in this nation.
The biggest block of potential voters by far is low-income, low-wage voters.
I can't afford medicine. Sometimes I have to skip because of the cost.
The farm worker community is tired of the violence imposed upon us by greed, exclusion, and denial of basic human rights.
Those folk that represented by that casket, poor and low-wage workers who are the most moral people in this country because they go to work every day believing, even though going to work is hazardous to their health.
I'm tired of working 70 to 80 hours a week and still not have money for the necessity of bills. I'm tired of getting sick and not being able to go see the doctor. Having to make a choice to pay between rent or the light bill or food or clothes.
You cannot claim to care about families and a culture of life and then do everything in your power to rob people of equal access to resources and to force them to live in poverty.
Leadership of both parties had waged war on poor people and low-wage workers.
And this government has treated people experiencing poverty, including their military families, with disdainful, deliberate, malicious neglect.
So the truth is that my son died from poverty.
We refuse to accept poverty as the fourth leading cause of death.
The fourth leading cause of death in this, the richest country in the world.
We march today for our children and the generations to come.
And we need to do it with the loudest voices possible, the biggest actions possible.
We will voice our demands and register our vote.
When we stand up and when we stand together, things change.
There is the electorate that is, and then there is the electorate that should be.
34 million eligible poor and low-income voters did not vote in 2016. If just 20% of those voters in swing states were mobilized around an agenda, they could change the political outcome of every election. So we're launching the most massive voter mobilization and turnout campaign in history of poor and low-wage voters, allies, and religious leaders.
People are dying, but we know it doesn't have to be this way. And so we are calling on everyone to join us in this Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival.
We are here, we will be seen, we will be heard, and our power will be felt. We don't need to be an insurrection. We are a resurrection that will be felt across this country. Are you ready? 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 We are a resurrection, and we are ready. And we won't be silent anymore.
Every time Senator Tim Scott opens his mouth, I just sit here and go, oh my goodness. I've never seen somebody kiss more Trump ass outside of Eric and Donald Jr. He is desperate to be Trump's vice president. Listen to the sheer BS he uttered on Fox News.
Can he create jobs for the poorest Americans? Good news is he created more than 7 million jobs, with the highest percentage going to women, African Americans, Hispanics, and Asians. What we know about 4 years under Donald Trump is we had low unemployment, low inflation, high enthusiasm, law and order in our streets, and we've had the exact opposite under Joe Biden.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to laugh.
First of all, let's get some basic facts. 6 million jobs under Trump, 13 million jobs under Biden. Mm-hmm. Crime is going down. Mm-hmm. It was going up under Trump. Then you hear all this, oh, yeah, low inflation. Then, of course, you had this idiot completely bungled COVID. All right, we saw what happened there as well. They're all lies. Oh, Mark Cuban even broke this down, how all of these Republicans are talking about, oh, how Biden is destroying the oil industry. Oh, I'm sorry. They never produced this much of oil in the United States ever. That's another lie that's out of the window. Oh, wages going up. Higher on the bottom. I mean, Julian, it's lie after lie after lie when it comes to the economic numbers.
It really is. I mean, the numbers are there. The Bureau of Labor Statistics is impartial. Most of the people who work there are career employees. They have no reason to fudge the numbers for Biden, for Trump, or for anybody else. The numbers tell the story, as you said. 6 million jobs under Dump and 13 million under President Biden. Unemployment rate lower under President Biden than under the Orange Man. We can go down the list. The one issue, the sticky wicket, of course, is inflation. And, of course, much of that can be attributed to COVID. But inflation is coming down. As the commentator, the conservative commentator said, they're trying to tell a story of America that just does not exist. You know, the crime down. We can just go down the list. Things are better. Now, for people at the bottom, they're not that much better. And you, perhaps, or somebody else can explain black men to me. I've never been able to figure it out. But those brothers who keep saying they're going to vote for Trump. But, you know, Terrence Woodbury and others have said those numbers may not be accurate. But the bottom line is Tim Scott is not only a liar, he's a blatant liar. He is, like I said, if his lips were not brown, you could see the feces running off of him, because that's how much behind he likes to kiss, just to make sure that the Orange Man considers him for vice president. But what does he bring to the ticket? Nothing. What does he bring to the table? Nothing. There is something wrong with that brother. But there's been something wrong with him for a very long time, as we all know.
And again, you're not going to get a pushback on Fox News, Renita, because they lie constantly.
Right, and I think it's time for this. You ain't got to lie, Craig. You ain't got to lie. And Tim Scott, you know, it's time for that for him, because he is always coming up with these fantasy scenarios of what he thinks is happening, and all of it always in support of Trump. The reality is, at the end of the day, voters do not care what statistics actually show. So he's wrong on his facts. But even if he was correct, voters don't care about any of that. Voters look at how they think and feel about how far their money is going. So if voters feel that they are able to work 40 hours a week and pay for basics, then they feel the economy is great. Voters do not go and say, oh, let me see what an economist said about the economy to tell me how I should feel about it. That's just not what voters do. They look at how are they getting along? What is their quality of life? How hard are they having to work to pay for the basics? So why keep them up and just tell these lies that are easily things that can be fact checked and disputed? I don't know.
I just sit here and I'm like, dude, just stop lying. And on Congo, it's just like constantly. And then he was like, oh my goodness, blacks are running over to the Republic. No, they're not. Black folks are now running over to Don, and now the Republicans are trying this other lie that, oh, they're going to start using his criminal conviction as a way to appeal to black people. Oh, so what they're saying is, black people, you're felons.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And if anybody think that's going to work, I got a bridge I want to tell you. Look, the way that they are using him and Byron Donalds and these other guys to get out there and be these surrogates and just get out there and flat out lie, it's sad. What's also really sad is that the people who need to hear that these guys are lying are most likely not going to see that truth unless they do hear from the, Colin Cowards of the world, because they're not paying attention to us. But the fact of the matter is, as we continue to plug away and challenge this not only misinformation but disinformation about the Trump versus Biden economy, it's also very important that we make sure that we point out the fact that Biden's economy is better than Trump's pre-COVID. Because they always want to throw out the whole thing about, well, COVID, and that's what led to the reduction in these numbers of unemployment economy. That's not true. Trump is doing worse than Biden before COVID, and that's extremely important. And so at every measure, there's no inflation still an issue, as Dr. Malvo said, but at every measure, Biden is beating him, and particularly as it relates to the black community, issues relating to diabetes. We can talk about student loans. I saw Dr. Wes Bellamy last week talking about how his loans got canceled. I mean, there are so many diabetes. There's so many stories we can be telling that can refute what people are saying about what Trump's doing. doing, and not in the grand scale. We can bring it down to personal things that are happening in our community that our communities are actually seeing results of right now and will be seeing as the months go forward. And we got to keep hammering that home because they're going to keep hammering these lies. And Fox is part of the problem, as always.
And the lies will come fast and furious.
When COVID happened, poor people were dying at a rate already of 800 people a day. Before COVID, if you went to a funeral every single day, it would take you 600 years to attend all the funerals of the people who will die from the ravages of policy violence, poverty, and low wages in America in just 1 year. It would take you 2 years and 19 days to go to all of the funerals of the people that will die today, and oftentimes silence. Nobody talks about this political genocide, but we are determined today to remember their death and be a resurrection of voting power and voice power like never before.
Economic justice and saving this democracy are deeply connected. We, as a nation, must listen to the demands of the poor, who are pushing and will continue to push political candidates and elected leaders to lift from the bottom so that everybody can rise.
We are the poor, the marginalized, and the underpaid. And we are taking one step forward to say that everybody has a right to live.
Poverty is not the fault of those who are impoverished. It is caused by those who make the policy.
There are over 135 million poor and low-wage, low-income people in this nation.
The biggest block of potential voters by far is low-income, low-wage voters.
I can't afford medicine. Sometimes I have to skip because of the cost.
The farm worker community is tired of the violence imposed upon us by greed, exclusion, and denial of basic human rights.
Those folk that represented by that casket, poor and low-wage workers who are the most moral people in this country because they go to work every day believing, even though going to work is hazardous to their health.
I'm tired of working 70 to 80 hours a week and still not have money for the necessity of bills. I'm tired of getting sick and not being able to go see the doctor. Having to make a choice to pay between rent or the light bill or food or clothes.
You cannot claim to care about families and a culture of life and then do everything in your power to rob people of equal access to resources and to force them to live in poverty.
Leadership of both parties have waged war on poor people and low-wage workers.
And this government has treated people experiencing poverty, including their military families, with disdainful, deliberate, malicious neglect.
So the truth is that my son died from poverty.
We refuse to accept poverty as the fourth leading cause of death.
The fourth leading cause of death in this, the richest country in the world.
We march today for our children and the generations to come.
And we need to do it with the loudest voices possible, the biggest actions possible.
We will voice our demands and register our vote.
When we stand up and when we stand together, things change.
There is the electorate that is, and then there is the electorate that should be.
34 million eligible poor and low-income voters did not vote in 2016. If just 20% of those voters in swing states were mobilized around an agenda, they could change the political outcome of every election. So we're launching the most massive voter mobilization and turnout campaign in history of poor and low-wage voters, allies, and religious leaders.
People are dying, but we know it doesn't have to be this way. And so we are calling on everyone to join us in this Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival.
We are here, we will be seen, we will be heard, and our power will be felt. We don't need to be an insurrection. We are a resurrection that will be felt across this country. Are you ready? 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 We are a resurrection, and we are ready. And we won't be silent anymore.
see the lying, the massive lying that's going on. And we have refuted this nonsense over and over and over again. But I want to show y'all again, this is what happens when Donald Trump lies, and then folks like Senator Tim Scott runs to Fox News and constantly, he is lying on CNN and MSNBC, and it doesn't go to MSNBC, CNN and Fox News, over and over and over again. I'm talking about massive lies. I'm about to play something for y'all, and if y'all want to just hear sheer stupidity, just watch this.
I funded the colleges and black colleges and universities. Nobody else did that. Nobody else even thought of it. And I funded the colleges and black colleges and universities. Nobody else did that. Nobody else even thought of it. And I funded the colleges and black colleges and universities. Nobody else did that. Nobody else even thought of it. And
Kimbrough put this tweet out. It's past time for all HBCU supporters to push back on this narrative. HBCUs have received federal funding since 1966. This is the graphic that Walter posted. This is Title III funding from 1966 through 1997. Y'all, these are the facts. Now, let me explain to y'all what you have going on here. The lie that Donald Trump keeps promoting. First, it was a $250 million program that first happened under President George W. Bush. It was continued under President Barack Obama. Actually, it expired. They actually reauthorized it. Now, it's a $250 million program. Now, here's what's interesting, folks. Again, people don't want to deal with. Only about 90 million of that program goes to HBCUs. It is called the Future Act. The additional money goes to Hispanic serving institutions, okay? That's what it is, okay? The Trump folks zeroed the program out in their budget, meaning they ended it. It was Congresswoman Alma Adams, Congressman Bobby Scott, and Democrats who said, no, we putting this back in. Fought for it. When it went over to the Senate, they filibustered it. Senator Lamar Alexander of Tennessee, and then Representative Adams, Representative Scott, and others were pressing them. When the HBCU presidents had their meetings here in D.C., and when he brought them to the White House, remember the whole photo, they all standing behind him, and Kellyanne Conway with her little country ass, shoes off, knees all in the Oval Office couch on her phone. They said, we need to push this particular bill. Then he goes, a win. So, let me get involved in this. And so what he then did was he then tried to claim that he was the one who came up with it. It wouldn't have happened without him. So I don't know what we are to do. Y'all, Anthony, go to my iPad. Y'all see this right here? HR 5363, who the sponsor is, right here. Committees, House Education and Labor, who's the chair of that subcommittee, Congressman Bobby Scott. Y'all, that's what happened. Donald Trump is lying, Tim Scott is lying, and anybody else who's out here talking about, how Trump was a savior to black people, and you notice they never ever give a number. Donald Trump has done more funding. This is Tim Scott. Donald Trump funded black colleges more than anybody else. And you never hear Margaret Brennan. You don't even hear Abby Phillips. You don't hear any of these people saying, Senator, can you give me the number? Can you tell me how much HBCUs received in funding under the Trump administration? You never hear them ask that question because they're not well versed on these topics.
Well, there's a weird sort of agreement, too, of just not wanting to counter these people or have sort of this sort of both sides thing that it's going on, where the media, instead of protecting the truth, lets these people say this stuff over and over again?
Because they don't know jack. Let's be real clear, Lauren. They don't know jack about HBCUs. They don't. Yeah. Even the black people on mainstream television, they don't.
But really, also on top of that, I mean, remember when everybody was tied up in knots 4 or 5 years ago over whether or not we should use the word liar when it came to...
Oh, yeah, I remember.
Liar. Should we use the word liar? That entire ridiculous conversation. And what they were doing was getting on national television and repeating lies over and over again, knowing that that would platform it, and knowing that about 60 or 70% of the audience was going to believe it. Until finally the media started to wake up. But yeah, to your point, they don't know anything about HBCU funding. So that's the other problem. You know, but it's amazing to me the extent to which straight up lying gets routinely platformed on national TV. It happens all the time.
Mm-hmm. These folks, they're lying, and here's this is where misinformation comes in. You got Negroes running around left and right, Greg, coming back at me on social media, repeating a lie because Donald Trump repeated the lie and made it sound like he was the savior of HBCUs. 16 billion. This is also why. Wait, go ahead and comment on that, Greg.
No. I mean, all I was going to say, thank you, Roland, is that, you know, they have figured out the strategy. The question you asked a few minutes ago is the question: how do we counter it? It's got to be a multi-pronged strategy. And, you know, Reese, thank you again for distinguishing between dis and misinformation. Trump has figured it out. Let's just take our hat off to him. It doesn't matter whether it happened. You just have to. The fool said a couple of days ago he never said lock her up. It doesn't matter. You know, the Roots picnic was this past weekend in Philly. And back in February, when Sexy Red was added to the lineup for the Roots picnic, Questlove defended it, said, you know, we want to have diversity. Yeah, people listen to Sexy Red just like they listen to 50 Cent, just like they listen to other people stupidly, Lil Wayne and them coming around, you know, talking crazy. Sexy Red, oh yeah, man, Trump was giving out them checks. The challenge is, how do you counter foolishness? How do you counter lies? You counter them with facts. You counter them with doing what you're doing right now, what we're doing right here, but you also counter it by creating a narrative that is very clear and that not only says we have a clear choice coming up in this upcoming election, but that I really think this. We need to start narrating this not only in terms of the right and the left and Democrats, Republicans, and fascism, good versus evil. I mean, you know, black folk gonna go spend their money on a Tyler Perry movie, gonna watch every possible iteration of 50 Cent's pathology stuff on Stars and all this kind of stuff, you know, and people generally like good guys and bad guys. You can't counter a straight liar who will look you in the face and say anything. It's just like when we were children. Somebody breaks something and one sibling come in and say, I didn't do it. The other sibling says, I got evidence. But if you get into too big of a back and forth with the one who's telling a bold-faced lie, both of y'all take an L. At some point, you got to decide that this is a bright line. And when you have the courage of your convictions, you were not going to stop them from lying, but you can back people up off of you with the simple fact that no, we got to do. I mean, you know, it's done here, but it ain't gonna. It's not just about a matter of fact. He know he lying. He knows he's lying. He understands it's effective though, because most people ain't gonna check it out.
Yep. In fact, again, Reese, here is lying Tim Scott. This is This ain't even, this your opinion. No, this right here is Senator Tim Scott lying on Fox News. Listen.
Who's the president who brought the most money in for historically black colleges and universities? Donald Trump.
Straight ass lie. Just like straight lie. And I'm gonna watch this here. Listen to this here. This is another conversation on Fox News.
I think the Biden team needs to make a positive case for what they're doing. Investment in HBCUs. He just had a bunch of them to the White House, their leaders recently. A lot of employment opportunities for Black Americans. They have a positive story to tell. I also think they do need to draw the contrast with Trump. The way he talked about Black Lives Matter, the Central Park Five, those are real things Donald Trump has said. There's a story out today about Trump's very...
Now, so here's the thing that
again, that folk got to pay attention to, got to understand. And this is also what happens when you step on your own message. It was a couple of weeks ago, Reese, when the Biden White House announced it was beginning on a Thursday, $16 billion to HBCUs. Well, guess what? The next day, the Department of Justice came out, reclassification of marijuana. There were more posts on the Biden-Harris social media pages about the reclassification of marijuana than the $16 billion. I then went to, and remember, we had Cameron Trimble, who used to work at the White House in the digital operation, on the show, and he was talking about, he said, I'm sure the information is on all of the HBCU Instagram pages. I pulled them up. It wasn't.
No.
It wasn't, because I immediately checked. It wasn't on Watch the Yard. It wasn't on all of them. And again, this is a perfect example of how not only the Biden-Harris administration, but also their campaign absolutely screws it up, because here's what I've never seen. I've literally never seen the Biden-Harris campaign pull the research and say, HBCUs got this in the 4 years of Trump. Let's say $4 billion. Biden-Harris, $16 billion. Contrast it. Don't just let the lie stands go. No, you gave them this, we gave them this. You tried to get rid of the program that you claim, and this is actually how we saved it. I'm like, damn, if you're gonna fight, damn it, fight.
Right.
Well, here's the thing, too. In addition to inadequately taking credit for the things that are happening under this administration, they concede too much ground to Trump in terms of what he actually did. Here's a headline. March 22, 2018 from News One. Secure the bag. Kamala Harris helps get millions for HBCUs. A funding increase was included in the Senate's omnibus spending bill. This was something that I talked about so many times as an advocate for Kamala Harris. It was a 14% increase in the Senate omnibus. Be clear. I know we talk a lot about what Congresswoman Alma Adams did, but Vice President Kamala Harris, then Senator Kamala Harris, and Tim Scott was her colleague, he would know this, was in the Senate securing additional funding for HBCUs as well. I remember during COVID where she secured $5 million for Howard. They have a hospital and a medical school, and she got into a Michael Reba because he was like, why are they getting $5 million? And so she did so much work. And Democrats, remember, there was a time under the Trump administration where the Democrats had the House. They don't do enough to counter the fact that a lot of the things that Trump wants to take credit for were actually spearheaded and a result of the Democratic majority in the House and through advocacy and actions that were done through senators. And so they have a winning story to tell under the Biden-Harris administration, $16 billion for HBCUs. It's not even including the things that they did around HBCU safety grants. They're constantly bringing in HBCU presidents, the Divine Nine presidents, and all these other Black organizations. And then it's crickets about it. I mean, you can't just post a picture on your Instagram or on your Twitter and then leave it alone. They let these stories become a 1 hour, 2 hour story as opposed to being incorporated into their greater disciplined messaging strategy. And so that's where they continue to fall short. And unfortunately, the other side is very smart. Trump, he had the Trump Platinum Plan, which was bullshit, but he knew how to message it. He'll say HBCUs. He don't give a damn about HBCUs, but they know how to message it.
Well, in fact,
constantly invoke.
In fact, this person, somebody named Andre Johnson, who is a professor of communications, also is an author. He put this tweet up. He said, the reason why folks think Trump gave more money to HBCUs was because of this photo. The photo speaks volumes. So what is the moral of the story? And so here you go. So this is what he did. It was stagecraft. What he did was brought him to the Oval Office. Look at all the folks sitting here. Not everybody sitting here, skinning and grinning in this photo. But that's the whole deal. You brought them all in the Oval Office and gave the impression, oh, I just love y'all, when he was really trying to slit their throats until Congresswoman Alma Adams, Congressman Bobby Scott said, no, we're not going to let that happen.
Roland, you saw the photograph.
Hold on. Greg, then Reese, then Lauren. Go.
Just very quickly, you saw the photograph there. You saw who was standing right there to our left, his right. And that was, of course, the president of Tennessee State, who has been deposed by the white nationalist legislature there, and they flipped the board. That's President Glenda Baskin Glover. She is not a Trump supporter. She's behind the cotton curtain. The president of the United States calls. And I just want to wrap this up with my little comment, and I'll get out of your way, Reese, with going back to where you started tonight's show, with a federal intervention, calling for a federal intervention in the rogue white nationalist state of Texas. The same thing happens with higher education. Right now in Mississippi, they're going to go after several HBCUs again. Valley is under the threat. They're going to keep digging at Jackson State. In a second term, what we need to hear from Biden-Harris is not only what they've accomplished, which is very important, but what they're going to do next. All of the money that is owed the HBCUs, it's time to go to court now. And it's time for you to put that in your stump speeches when you travel through the South. It's time. The vice president can't do that. The president's going to have to green light that. Y'all need to get off the fence chasing these three toothless white voters and decide whether you want to win this election or not. And that's going to require some debts that are going to be paid forward when you win in November, if you want people to come out. And one of those debts, as it relates to HBCUs, is going after these white legislatures who have made a blood oath to destroy black colleges behind the cotton curtain in the neo-Jim Crow South, including Mr. Donald's almost alma mater, FAMU. We've got to be aggressive now on what you're going to do going forward, tied to what you've already done. At least that's my opinion.
Reese.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree with Dr. Carr. You have to take credit, but you have to contrast. I mean, look at what Trump did. I did this. Nobody else did it before me. Nobody else thought about it until I did it. He's always contrasting when he takes credit. Too often, this administration and their messaging, they don't contrast between what they've done and what the other side is doing. Like to Dr. Carr's point said, when they're talking about the HBCU funding and the support they have, they need to be contrasting to what the Republican governors are doing across the states when it comes to HBCUs, as well as to these DEI departments that are being dismantled. I haven't heard enough about outrage around that. Whole departments being shut down in the state of Texas and in the state of Florida. So until they really wrap their minds and their messaging around the fact that you can't just put it in a meme that's $16 billion in big font, you have to learn how to talk and message and contrast, and do that with a disciplined, relentless manner, not just you, but your surrogates who are on TV, that are on the radio, that are on the Roland Martin filters, et cetera. If you value them enough to send them here, then you're going to continue to be losing to a very simple message. Donald Trump did all this stuff for black people, when it isn't even true.
When COVID happened, poor people were dying at a rate already of 800 people a day. Before COVID, if you went to a funeral every single day, it would take you 600 years to attend all the funerals of the people who will die from the ravages of policy violence, poverty, and low wages in America in just 1 year. It would take you 2 years and 19 days to go to all of the funerals of the people that will die today, and oftentimes silence. Nobody talks about this political genocide, but we are determined today to remember their death and be a resurrection of voting power and voice power like never before.
Economic justice and saving this democracy are deeply connected. We, as a nation, must listen to the demands of the poor, who are pushing and will continue to push political candidates and elected leaders to lift from the bottom so that everybody can rise.
Take back the mic, take back the mic, take back the mic, take back the mic.
We are the poor, the marginalized, and the underpaid. And we are taking one step forward to say that everybody has a right to live.
Poverty is not the fault of those who are impoverished. It is caused by those who make the policy.
There are over 135 million poor and low-wage, low-income people in this nation.
The biggest block of potential voters by far is low-income, low-wage voters.
I can't afford medicine. Sometimes I have to skip because of the cost. The farm worker community is tired of the violence imposed upon us by greed, exclusion, and denial of basic human rights.
Those folk that represented by that casket, poor and low-wage workers who are the most moral people in this country because they go to work every day believing, even though going to work is hazardous to their health.
I'm tired of working 70 to 80 hours a week and still not have money for the necessity of bills. I'm tired of getting sick and not being able to go see the doctor. Having to make a choice to pay between rent or the light bill or food or clothes.
You cannot claim to care about families and a culture of life and then do everything in your power to rob people of equal access to resources and to force them to live in poverty.
Leadership of both parties have waged war on poor people and low-wage workers.
And this government has treated people experiencing poverty, including their military families, with disdainful, deliberate, malicious neglect.
So the truth is that my son died from poverty.
We refuse to accept poverty as the fourth leading cause of death.
The fourth leading cause of death in this, the richest country in the world.
We march today for our children and the generations to come.
And we need to do it with the loudest voices possible, the biggest actions possible.
We will voice our demands and register our vote.
When we stand up and when we stand together, things change.
There is the electorate that is, and then there is the electorate that should be.
34 million eligible poor and low-income voters did not vote in 2016. If just 20% of those voters in swing states were mobilized around an agenda, they could change the political outcome of every election. So we're launching the most massive voter mobilization and turnout campaign in history of poor and low-wage voters, allies, and religious leaders.
People are dying, but we know it doesn't have to be this way. And so we are calling on everyone to join us in this Poor People's Campaign, a national call for more revival.
We are here, we will be seen, we will be heard, and our power will be felt. We don't need to be an insurrection. We are a resurrection that will be felt across this country. Are you ready? 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 We are a resurrection, and we are ready.